we have all fallen in love with the amazing art for the new Masters of the Universe Origins Castle Grayskull. And on this episode of Geek Dad Life, we're going to interview one of the creative minds behind that art, Nate Baertsch. Hey everybody, and welcome to Geek Dad Life. It's your host, Jay Glatfelter here, and we have just been basking in the glow of last week's news of that new Castle Grayskull coming for Masters of the Universe Origins. And the one unifying piece of feedback this past week has been that amazing box art, that wrap-around box art that we're getting for this new Castle Grayskull. And I think we all would love to hear more about what went into making this incredible art. Thankfully, Nate Baertsch, who was one of the three people that worked on putting this amazing artwork together, was kind enough to spend some time with myself as well as John, who I co-host the live Toy Talk podcast that we do Sundays at 9 o'clock right here on Geek Dad Life, about the work that went into that art. Nate Baertsch is a fantastic artist and toy designer that has had his influence in Masters of the Universe classics all the way to what Super 7 is doing with the TMNT Ultimates, Thundercats Ultimates, and more. But he is also no stranger to Castle Grayskull, having been a big part of the design for the Icon Heroes Castle Grayskull statue, as well as the design of, what people consider the best Grayskull playset of all time, the Masters of the Universe Classics version of Castle Grayskull. For this latest version of Grayskull, he was asked by Alex Giménez as well as Juarez, was asked to add his own brushstrokes on top of the outline stenciled artwork of Alex, and then also contribute to the colors and their amazing colors on this Castle Grayskull artworks. All right, well, let's let Nate take it away and show us what went into making this amazing art. So excited today to have the legendary Nate Baertsch with us on the show to talk about, the thing that has taken the toy collecting world kind of by storm over this past week, and that is the new Masters of the Universe Origins Castle Grayskull. And the thing that everybody is talking about is the fantastic artwork that you, Axel, and Roy did. Like, take us through that journey. Take us to where Mattel's like, we're going to do this, to what we got, announced to us last week.
So I don't know the behind the scenes for the toy itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot speak to that at all. Unlike previous Grayskulls, I didn't have any hand in actually designing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or any of the design work. That was all done by Mattel by itself. It was so from where I stepped into the whole thing was, I'm trying to think what I can say and what I can't say. I'm just going to say stuff.
Okay.
And hope that Mattel doesn't come sue my pants off.
Fair enough.
So
we can bleep it.
Yeah, we'll bleep
things. That'll be good. So there are a few things, just little art chores here and there that actually Axel Giménez was working with Roy Juarez, and the two of them were working also with Francesco. So the bulk of the Origins artwork is done by that team, Axel and Roy and Francesco.
Yep.
And but Axel and I have worked in the past together on a variety of things, including Masters of the Universe. And Axel just knew and is a nice guy, and it was just like, you know what, there are certain projects that let's bring this Nate guy in for.
Mm-hmm.
So Roy was cool with that, and so they reached out to me. And so my part of this journey kind of begins with this email from Roy and Axel saying, hey, we're going to do this thing. Do you want to play? So I was like, of course. Well, of course I do. Yeah.
What's in your head? Like, what's in your mind? Like, if you get a message like that from those guys?
Well, for starters, going back to having Origins announced, and we're watching PowerCon, and we're seeing all the reveals.
Right.
And this is going back a couple years from PowerCon, and it's like, man, they've got to do a Castle Grayskull at some point. Like, we're all hoping that's the thing, and we all have in our minds what that could be and what that could look like, and maybe someday we'll talk about whether or not this new one fits what we were thinking, but that's a whole other topic altogether.
Yes.
I'd always thought in the back of my mind there were high hopes that they'll do a Grayskull.
Mm-hmm.
And, so what goes through my mind is just like the very first thing is, well, I got to see Axel sketches, because I knew kind of beforehand, just in our communications, that Axel was gonna craft this masterpiece really at the beginning stages. He and Roy had worked together, and when you look at the box art, you can see that it's designed specifically for logo placements. It's designed specifically to be a nice big wraparound box.
Yep.
And I knew a lot of that would come into play, and then I kept trying to nudge, and was like, just put the green goddess in there. The green goddess has to be in there. And if you know me, you know what that means. So green goddess, of course, to any of your listeners or viewers that don't know, that's basically Tila, that she's just painted green. And she showed up in one mini comic way back at the very beginning.
Yep.
That's the short of it. And then
which they got to do in Origins. They have to do one.
Yeah.
Like it's a must.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If not, I'm just gonna go pick up I just saw another Tila at the store today. I was like, I could just grab that and then just paint it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy custom.
But you want it translucent, right? We want to kind of match the classics, or at least in my mind. I'd love to see it take another stab at the translucent classic.
Yes, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if that happens eventually. And Axel also knows that that's a big thing for me. So maybe in the packaging realm, for that one character, who knows? That's me pitching. That's not announcements. It's not a spoiler or leak. That's just me wishing right there.
Yes.
Please consider me for the Green Goddess packaging. But
if I was gonna clickbait this interview, be like, Green Goddess is gonna happen. Like, you know.
Here comes the hashtags.
Yeah, exactly. So funny story. I might as well tell it now since we're talking about her. As I'm doing all the color work, so I'm deciding colors on this whole piece.
Yeah.
Roy had sent me Axel's pencils in advance, a lot of his rough stuff, just so that I could start to wrap my head around some ideas. There are other color treatments, we'll say, on that piece. Really just one other color treatment that I have to keep under wraps, unfortunately. So I don't know if it'll come out or not at some point. It's not drastically different than what we're getting on the packaging.
Yeah.
But in talking with Roy, he was referencing a lot of William George's artwork. And one of the things that Roy really likes about William's work, I don't know if you can even see that, but I have the poster.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. It's the 1984 Masters poster done by William George, and there's a lot of color in that. So if you look at Rudy Obrero's Grayskull box, that was the early days. It was dark, it was gritty, it was very Frazetta, it was very smoky, it was very, really heavy and moody. And Roy, in general, wants to kind of move away from that. He wants to celebrate the bright colors that are found in Masters of the Universe.
Yep.
And so he was looking at a lot of the, pinkish skies and blue skies, and he even sent me a handful of references of things that so we kind of talked back and forth, and that's why we landed on what we did. We also feel like historically a pink sky behind Grayskull works. I mean, if you look at the old Filmation stuff, that's exactly what that was. So that particular theme ended up winning the day. And while I'm painting along and I get to Tila, I actually painted her on purpose as Green Goddess.
Really?
So there is a version of that whole Castle Grayskull scene where Green Goddess is fighting Trapjaw.
That's
nice.
Is that only in the Nate collection? Does that not come out?
Right. Yeah. Right now, that's just in the Nate collection. But and it was funny because I didn't say a thing. And I just sent that version, because I'll send iterations of the painting to the art director, which in this case is Roy, and he's passing everything off, and he comes back, he's like, this is still looking so awesome, but that is not Tila. That is we really need to make that Tila, okay? And it's just like, okay. I mean, I knew it already, and it was funny because I had already painted at Tila. It was literally just another layer that I just turned on.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no worries, I got it. This was a joke. So that's a funny story there behind Tila.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was my way of trying to sneak her in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
It almost made it.
There's a version of it somewhere. That's all. It exists somewhere. alternate universe.
Does exist.
Yeah.
I mean, they left the aura for Fortress for like 2 days on Instagram.
Yeah, that was a whoops. That was just a whoops.
But no, I'm glad you called out the color difference. I think that's what kind of makes this one stand out so much because, you know, even the classics ones was kind of echoing that original artwork, but this one just seems so much more expansive and just it sparks the imagination because of the backdrop behind the art, and it just looks unreal.
Thank you.
Thank
you. I'll confess something. One of my favorite things in that whole painting, actually some of my favorite subject matter in general in that whole painting, is actually the sky and the planets.
Yeah.
Like if you go looking at those, it's like, man, yeah, I maybe spent a little too much time on those. But yeah.
Can I ask you something about that? Because that was definitely something that drew me in immediately. And one of those planets, it reminds me a little bit of Nordor. Specifically the one where the sky sleds are in front of.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. You know, Axel just draws these pencils and I just color it, and
gotcha.
There's a whole bunch of subconscious masters of the universe knowledge in my head. Sometimes it just pours out in the weirdest places.
My hat's off to you, sir.
I'm not saying it is Nordor.
Right.
But I'm not saying it isn't.
Right. So to me, it's Nordor. It's up to interpretation for now.
Exactly. And that is the best answer. And there's no disputing that. So yeah.
Right.
Yep. Totally. And that's when I think that's what makes a lot of the original Masters artwork. And I think what they're doing with the Origins line special is, and I think we've talked about it on our show before, John, but it's like, it's sparking that imagination. And what made Masters for me, especially the mini comics and the artwork for the toys, is just like, you just want to immerse yourself in this world. And yeah, so you can choose what those planets are, and you can create, either pull from mythology or create your own mythology. And that's, you know, when this stuff gets special. So in terms of the Grayskull coming together, did it gel or come a lot easier to you than maybe some of the other recent Origins packaging that you worked on?
It did. Yeah, it really, really did. It took a while. It took a longer time. The difference with this packaging is previous stuff I was coloring underneath Axel's line work. Like he had really nice finished inks that was really showing off his beautiful renderings. And my colors were just kind of supporting that. Whereas Roy and Axel were both like, no, this one you're painting over top of Axel's work. So
wow,
literally you'll see, and again, referencing William George, if you look at William George's paintings up close, you'll start to see like some of the pencil sketch lines underneath the paint. And I love that stuff. And so I intentionally, if you look at this Grayskull piece, when you get it in your hand and it's nice and big, you'll be able to look and you'll be like, hey, there's Axel's pencils still in there. But then you'll see my brush strokes over top of it, kind of a thing. So we were really trying to make it special, and so I took a lot more time with it.
Yeah.
And it just gelled. Like as soon as I hit that stride and going, there were, aside from the Green Goddess incident, that there really weren't a lot of variations or fixes that were needed after that.
Who influenced the little skeleton warriors there? Whose influence was that?
That's all out of Axel's head.
Okay, all right.
That's completely out of Axel's head, and you got to watch Axel. That guy, he posts teasers all the time on his like if he's posting Masters of the Universe and then he posts something else, you need to pay attention to that because it's speaking to an influence that's affecting what he's working on right now that you will see later on some packaging or something.
Yeah.
So in this case with those skeletons, those are straight up Ray Harryhausen, Jason and the Argonauts inspiration, but then he took them and pulled them into the Masters of the Universe in just a beautiful way.
Oh, people are like demanding figures of those now. Yeah. So freaking cool.
which Mattel is like, yes.
It's like it's a character they don't even have to come up with anymore. It's just
it's
make it.
Yeah.
As long as they glow in the dark.
Yep.
Right?
They better. Oh
yeah.
man, they better. Glow in the dark skeletons. That's where it's at, man.
It has to be, right? If you're gonna have scare glow, like I feel like that's just the standard. You have to meet that standard.
Well, and well, I did receive notes on those, so I knew it wasn't something I came up with to make them super glowy. I'll just put it that
Okay.
Oh.
way. That's all I'll say about that.
How about a lot of the other kind of characters that are in that artwork? Is it just, are they, because it feels like with the art they've done so far in Origins, it's very purposeful. Like if they're showing you something that doesn't exist yet, and we've already seen it, like, oh, well, that one's, we're gonna get that now this year. Never. Like is all possible? I know you may not be able to like divulge the actualities of it, but is it all possible, or does every single thing we see on art have that level of forward planning behind it, or sometimes it's just art for art's sake?
So Mattel is very guarded and careful about how much they let me know.
Sure.
Like it's always very project specific. And so, which I respect that, and it's just a mode of business, and that's just the way it works.
Makes your life easier because then there's like, I don't know.
Then I could say, look, I don't know. So as far as like skeleton warriors and other characters you may or may not see on that packaging, I don't know what the plans are, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But having said that, I'm going to speak back again to just the brilliant man that is Axel Giménez.
Yeah.
And again, with as much Masters of the Universe information I have floating around in my head, I think he has twice that, or if not 3 times more of that. And so he very intentionally and purposefully puts in Easter eggs all over the place, and he puts in stuff that he knows that the hardcore fans are going to pick out.
Yeah.
But I will say, in the case of Castle Grayskull, there are some characters, the skeletons namely is one of them, that I don't think we've seen anywhere necessarily else before quite like that. So also keep in mind Ruben Martinez in PowerCon during some of those panels, he blatantly asked the audience, he's like, how about new stuff? What do you guys think of that?
Yeah.
So like I said, I don't have knowledge, so I can't say. Even if I did know, I wouldn't be able to say. But in all honesty, I'm telling you that I don't have that knowledge. I don't know what their plans are, but I know that the team working on it loves where this line is going, and they're putting a lot into it. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if a year or 2 years from now we're playing with glow in the dark skeletons and cyclopses and things of that nature
around a Snake Mountain.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
although I kind of hope I do something different, like a fright zone. Like I kind of prefer a fright zone before Snake Mountain. You know, as long as we know the line is going that well, you know.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I mean, everyone's puppets for the Fright Zone. I don't think there's a single one left in full, intact condition. So that one does need to be.
Yeah, and if there is a puppet that is in shape, please get that to somebody that knows what they're doing with casting and molding, and somebody capture that thing, please, before it's gone forever.
I've seen some bad attempts.
Yeah. Yes.
I know there's somebody that makes one, but it's solid. It's not flexible whatsoever. You know, so you can't actually use it as a puppet.
No, it's got to be a wrinkly, weird sock puppet thing.
Yeah.
Minimum barrier of entry there.
There you go.
How heartwarming is it for you that, because I mean, maybe just the cynical, business-minded toy company might not, involve people like you that have intimate knowledge of this property and just go, some in-house artists that'll probably do a passable job, but not have that level. Because it just seems to me like even at PowerCon, the level of care that just about everybody that works on that line is like super fans. And I feel like that's becoming more and more rare in mainstream toy industry. And like how special is that for you? Like when you're seeing this now?
I love it, and I'm honored by it, and I'm always grateful for it. Like just because you're right, they do not have to reach out to me. They don't have to reach out to Axel. It also speaks well to I'll put Axel back in the spotlight, but it speaks well to him and his work ethic. Not only is he a passionate fan, but the guy's a hard worker, and he's kicking out so much work, so much that they can't hire me to color his stuff because I'm not that fast. I'm way slower. I'm more methodical, and I'm probably more expensive. You know, who knows? I don't know. But they found Axel, and then they also found Francesco, who likewise has been a longtime friend of Axel. So to have, for a company that you're exactly right, they don't have to do that, but they are. And that speaks really well to this line in general. That's one of the highlights, and you see that overall from the comments from the fans, just that, man, the packaging, they're hitting it on all cylinders, and it's really bringing the magic back, and it's super heartwarming to like today I walked into Walmart and there's Axel's artwork all over the place. And there's, you know, rocks, and it's, you know, the exploding rocks. It's like it hits those nostalgic buttons, but then it also, being in the position that I'm in, just as a fan that's worked on the property also and continuing to work on the brand whenever I'm invited to, it is very heartwarming. And it's like, man, everybody talks about all this crap that's happening in 2020, and they're not wrong. 2020 talks. But there is a lot to look forward to as well, and there's a lot of good things that do happen, and I would rather focus on those good things.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I can't wait to see the Grayskull artwork like on a toy shelf. I can only imagine what that'll be like for you, like having your you know, brush strokes on that thing that's on the toy shelf. That's going to be unreal.
I've been known to get emotional before, and it won't surprise me if I just have to stop and just take a minute and take it in, and then take a selfie.
It's like when a musician hears their song on the radio for the first time.
It can be an emotional thing for sure. It was the same thing back when I received my Castle Grayskull, Classics Castle Grayskull, when it came to the mail finally. Something that I remember having to stop and just like take a minute, and I start crying, and my wife and my daughters at the time are just like, "Whoa!" And I'm just like, "This is like real. This is so real." Like, it's just a chunk of plastic. It's just toys. It's like, no, it's not. It's more than that.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you were talking to kid Nate, like that you can do that, you know, like one of those things.
Yeah, if there were a time machine, that would be my first stop, is back to when I was a kid, and say, dude, okay, just get through this, keep working hard, and good things are happening. I don't know if I'd want to spoil myself. I would just say, just keep at it, keep doing it. Your mind is going to be blown when you're an adult, and you're going to get phone calls and emails from like people that are just, it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, for sure. What I guess one last big thing, I guess, and you might not be able to share it, but a lot of people are kind of shocked that they unveiled the Grayskull now and not at PowerCon, because they would have to have been, you might have even been working on it by that point. Do you know maybe the strategy behind, or why they unveiled it now versus PowerCon, when people were all, I mean, we were both like jazz power, or like, oh my God, I can expect all this stuff. Like if they did Grayskull, maybe it was too much. Maybe our heads were just exploded, but like, you know, maybe the strategy behind that, or is it more just a production thing?
It could be production. It could also be just looking at what they're revealing. Because I think companies like Mattel are very careful about how much they let out of the hose, you know? However that works. It would have been a lot to throw Castle Grayskull, I think, into Power. This is me personally.
Yeah.
Like it would have been a lot on top of what, and it would probably have taken away from a lot of the stuff that they were showing. That's my guess. I don't know for sure. The other thing is I was absolutely working on that as PowerCon was happening this year. So maybe it's my fault. We could all just blame me and just say, you know, Nate was still twiddling on the packaging art, so we couldn't show it off.
But look at the end result.
Oh, yeah, so good. Like, yeah, I even saw people like posting it even on your personal social media. Like, is there going to be a chance for people to buy like a print version? because it wraps around the box, and if you see it, just as it's art, it's incredible. I want that on a wall. Like, are people gonna get a chance, maybe like get a print version of it, or?
I certainly hope so. I would love to see that. I would love to see that presented in a form much like that poster was.
Yes.
In the sense of, why not? That was a thing, and I know for sure that Axel, as he was creating that and laying all those characters out, that was the other thing that floored me, was just the sheer number of characters.
Yes.
On that piece.
Melee, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and so while it's not presented the same way that the William George yearly posters were presented, it could still absolutely be used as a poster. And I can say, I think this isn't saying too much other than to just say Mattel is very well aware of everybody's comments. Mattel is absolutely watching. The right people are watching, and they're seeing what people are asking for, and they're seeing what they're excited about and what they're less excited about. So, so yeah, they're listening. I'm hopeful. And I had also posted, I would love to see that as a puzzle. I think that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It'd be a really cool puzzle to sit down and do.
I agree. That'd be a great puzzle. Because again, to your point, like there's just so many little details in there that pay off really well as you're building out a puzzle.
I have no idea if the new Netflix show, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But I am excited to see what the designs will be coming out of that and how things look. And of course, I will be interested to see how they handled Grayskull.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's such an essential component to the Masters of the Universe lore. Like, and that's where it is kind of cool that we are getting a Grayskull so early, because how essential that playset is forced itself through the current kind of toy market where playsets aren't really a thing. But that's how powerful and iconic Grayskull is, that even in 2020, they brought it out and knew we had to have one. And that's power right there. That's the power of Grayskull.
Well, and I'm sure it's well researched. I'm sure they know exactly what they're doing, in the sense of, I mean, when you talk to, you have to recognize that our whole generation that was the playset of our day. Period.
Yeah.
Like it becomes iconic, even if you're just a casual He-Man fan.
Yeah.
You still know what Grayskull is, and you still remember that playset, and you have very fond memories of it. There's definitely something primal within it. I don't know if it's the skull. I love that there's always been confusion wrapped around it. It's always my favorite thing to talk to somebody that doesn't know He-Man very well, but they do remember this stuff, and they were like, "Wait a minute." That's always one of the first questions they ask me, is like, why was Grayskull He-Man's place? Because like clearly it belonged to Skeletor.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I turn it around on them. It's like, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Tell me, because I don't know.
I always love the mini comics version of it, where it's like a neutral kind of battleground that they're all fighting for.
Yeah.
I always love that. Because again, I think that adds the most play value. It's like, as a kid, like that's where in my own mind, like the stories just kind of flowed,
Absolutely.
It changing hands and stuff like that.
Well, and the whole motif behind it was centered around that, all the way from the flag. The flag had sides of good and evil.
Yep.
You had a good side and an evil side of the sword that actually let you in.
Yep.
That was also important. I saw an opportunity in the Classics castle to introduce a second tapestry.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was
in the Origins one too.
I know, that was another thing that I was like, hey, look what they did. So it was fun to create another tapestry and base it off of. This is where I return back to the Green Goddess here.
It all comes back.
It all comes back to that. If you look at the monster in that, it's kind of that. It's a version of that purple monster that was attacking her in that first mini comic.
Oh, okay. I love that mini comic, and I don't think I've ever connected that before.
Yeah,
That's
most people probably don't, because again, it's slightly modified, of course, but when you see that, it's like you can't unsee it then after that. So
that's awesome. That is so cool. Just amazing to kind of hear the inside stories about, what went into making this fantastic art. And, hopefully it sets up some great things to come in the Masters of the Universe Origins line. I want to thank Nate again for taking the time to talk with us. I know he's a really busy guy working on a ton of projects, not only his day job, but all of the amazing stuff that he is doing for us toy geeks out there. Be sure to check out my other Masters of the Universe Origins review. I got a playlist right here, as well as check out the full audio of this interview in the podcast audio version of Toy Geeks. That'll be a link right down in the description below. And definitely tune in this Sunday to Toy Geeks Live, where we'll show some more clips from this awesome, fun interview with Nate Baertsch. And until next time, hasta luego and goodbye.